Hi everyone. If you are struggling to thread petals or are tired of buying expensive cutters and veiners, then this tutorial is for you. Welcome to Arfa's Patisserie and Cafe. Today I'm sharing with you my secret no-fuss method for stunning Stargazer lilies. Grab your free templates and tool list from the description box below and let's get started. We start by making the pollen with 2 teaspoons of dry semolina. To this we're gonna add some edible dust. We add orange, milk chocolate brown, and a bright red. Okay guys, so we want a nice deep red over here, so mix the colors until you get the right shade. And just like that, the pollen is all ready to use. We're going to put this aside and we're going to move on to our next step. Next, we work on the stamen. For that, we're going to add some lime green to a piece of white gum paste, and we're going to knead it till it's pliable. Once ready, we're going to wrap a small piece on a half length 24 gauge wire. Okay, so make sure you take a small piece of gum paste because the stamen is going to be nice and thin. Also, this part that we're making right now is called the filament of the stamen. For the length of the stamen, just refer to the free template link in the description box below. Gently twirl the gum paste around the wire using your fingers while leaving around 4 mm uncovered towards the top. To smoothen the gum paste, I'm just going to roll it against the mat with a little bit of pressure. Now using a plier, we're going to just bend the tip to a right angle. To complete the stamen, we are just going to roll a tiny bit of white gum paste between our palm and finger to around 2 centimeters in length. Next, we use the knife tool to make a deep indent right in the middle. What we are making is the anther of the stamen. Lastly, we are just going to pinch the ends lightly for a more natural look. Now we flip the anther and fix the filament right in the center. Use a bit of edible glue if you need it. My gum paste was a bit sticky, so I skipped it this time. Now we put this aside and let it dry fully before moving on to the next step. Once everything is nice and dry, we're just going to dip the anther into some plain water and we're going to tap off any excess. Next, we dip it into the colored semolina to cover all that white gum paste. Tap off any excess to complete the stamen, and we're going to make 6 stamens per flower. Next, we're going to make the pistil using a full length 20 gauge wire. Mark the length of the pistil using the template and leave the rest for the stem. Once again, we're going to wrap a small piece of lime green gum paste onto the wire. Just like we did for the stamen, we're going to roll it against the mat to make it even. Okay, so now we want to take the gum paste all the way to the top. I'm just going to add a little piece since I'm a little short over here. Now we're going to take a small piece of gum paste again and make a little circle. We're going to attach this right at the top, pinch it and just merge it lightly with your Dresden tool. We're going to flatten the top a little bit. Now using my fingers and my thumb, I'm going to make a triangular shape. Once I have that, I'm going to use my veining tool and I'm going to make 3 segments over here. Use the back of the veining tool and deepen the segments on the side. We are going to make 1 pistil per flower. With that, your pistil is done. You're going to set this aside to dry. For our petals, we have a half length 20 gauge wire over here. Using the template, we will just mark out where the petal will start from. Now we're going to just apply some edible glue to the marked out length. I'm going to put that aside for now and we're just going to knead the gum paste a little bit. Let us quickly mark the start point again. Now we wrap the gum paste around the wire. We're going to keep the center thick and the ends will be tapered. We are now going to allow the gum paste to rest for 1 to 2 minutes so that it can properly attach itself to the wire. Next, we are going to condition the gum paste with a little bit of shortening before we move ahead. Now we press down the rolling pin right in the center and we'll create a thick log. Once that is done, you're just going to pull out the gum paste on the sides. We are now going to leave the wired part relatively thick and we're just going to pull out the sides to around 1 mm thickness. You can see a clear difference in the thickness between the center and the side. I'm going to thin this out just a little bit more. Okay, now I'm going to use my template and I'm going to make a cutout with my X-Acto knife. Once you're done cutting the shape out, you want to leave the petal alone for a few minutes so that it doesn't shift on you when you start working on the petal. Okay, so now we're going to decide which side is going to be the front and which is going to be the back. Wherever your wire shows more, that side will naturally be the back side of your petal. Now I'm going to use my shell tool and I'm going to run it across the length of the petal. This is going to give you nice texture for the petal and it will also provide you guidelines for the next step. You're going to do this on both the sides of the petal. We're going to try and keep the line work as straight as possible. Because we are working on petals that are slightly thick, you are going to lose a little bit of shape of the petal when you give it texture. So don't worry about that. We're going to fix that in just a bit. Now you're going to start from the back side of the petal. You're going to use your veining tool and you're going to run your veiner right alongside the wire and now on the other side of the wire. So your wire is basically sitting in the center. Now you're going to use your Dresden tool and you're going to deepen that ridge. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing in the front. In case you find this step a bit hard, you can always use a ruler and give yourself a guideline to make the indent. Finally, I'm going to run the veiner right in the center now. Next, we're just going to use our medium ball tool and thin out the edges. At this stage, I'm just going to correct the shape a little bit. I'm going to freehand this. You can use the template and the X-Acto knife to do the step. Once you are happy with the shape of the petal, we will use the ball tool to give the top a little frill. This is going to add some movement to it. To finish up, I'm just going to thin out the base a bit more, which basically makes the taping of the petal super easy. We are also going to quickly transition the thickness with our Dresden tool over here at this point. Next up is a fun detail that you can add, though it's totally optional based on your timeline and budget. If you want that extra realism, take a fine scissor and snip some random spikes all over the petal, keeping them a little heavier near the bottom. Two things you're going to do while cutting out the spikes is you're going to angle the scissor lightly and you're going to give it a little flick after you cut it. So that's going to make the spike stand up. Now to give the petal its signature curve, we will support the petal from the back and bend it at the base first. And then with gentle pressure, we're going to bend the tip using our thumb. As you can see, it forms a C shape. Just in case the wire starts showing, give it a little pinch and it should fix that. Now that this beauty is complete, we're going to prepare all the 6 petals in the same exact way. Next, we're going to add color to our petals. For that, we need yellow, citrus green, cherry red, red gel color, fuchsia pink, and some corn flour. So we're going to start with some yellow. We're going to mark out a point which is 1/3 the length of the petal approximately. I'm going to make a marking just around the vein. Think of it like a tall triangle shape that you're trying to make. You want to get the tip as clean as possible. Next up, we're going to use an angular flat brush for the green. We want to shade the vein and the base, and we're just going to merge the yellow and the green a little bit for transition. Now we flip the petal and shade the base and the vein with the green. For the back, we just want to do a light shading to highlight the textures. The one tip that I can give you for shading is that when you use the petal dust, it's better to pick up a little powder and shade and then move on and get some more. If you take too much powder, the petal or the shading could look not only blotchy, you're going to waste a lot of petal dust also, which is quite expensive. So don't do that. Take a little and transfer it to the gum paste and then move ahead. Okay, so now coming back to the front of the petal, we're gonna now use our fuchsia pink. We're gonna just loosen up that petal dust, and using a flat brush, I'm going to start coloring the base. The base of the petal is more concentrated in color, and the edges are gonna remain fairly light. So what we're doing is we're gonna add dust to the base, and then we're gonna slowly pull it towards the tip of the petal. Now using another flat brush, I'm just gonna mix up a little bit of my cherry red with the fuchsia pink to create a nice dark pink, and we're gonna highlight the vein with that. We're gonna saturate the vein with color all the way to the tip. I'm also gonna layer the dark pink onto the light pink to create a variation and shading in the petal. I have a little bit of loose powder sitting on the petal, so I'm just going to quickly clean that up with a round mop brush. We're doing this so that the pink doesn't dirty the yellow and the green, and it still looks bright and crisp when you finish the petal. Okay, now we're going to just shade the back a little bit. We're going to add light pink to the texture, and I'm just going to highlight the vein a little bit as well. These petals are a work of art, so take your time to enjoy the process. They're easy to make, and once you get the hang of it, I promise you're going to go through them really quickly. Now to paint the spikes, I'm just gonna mix up a little bit of Rejuvenator Spirit or vodka into the red gel color. We're gonna take a little bit and brush that onto the front of the spike. Use the thinnest brush that you have because that's gonna make the job a bit easier for you. I'm just gonna go over that once again to make it a little darker. For the next step, I'm going to make some spots using this ball tool. If you don't have it, just continue to use your brush. This is one of the key features of the Stargazer lily. In case you have decided not to do the spikes, just go ahead and make these spots instead. We're going to concentrate the spots towards the base and we're going to just thin it out towards the top. And with that, your petal is all dressed up. Just leave it alone, let it dry completely, and then we can assemble our flower. This is one of the outer petals, so it's much thinner as you can see from the inner petal, but it's done completely in the same way. There is no difference in how you're gonna make or shape the petal. Each flower has 3 inner petals and 3 outer petals, making it a total of 6. Once you're done with all the petals, we're gonna move on to the assembly of the flower. Okay, so before we move ahead, we just have a little more to do. I'm just applying a little bit of pink on the top of the pistil and in between the segments. And with that done, we're now ready to assemble our flower. We're going to start by assembling the center first. For that, we're going to take one stamen and we're going to place it just 2 centimeters below the pistil. So now using our green floral tape, we're just going to go around a couple of times before we add another stamen to it. I am doing this stamen by stamen, but you can definitely do maybe 2 or 3 stamens together. There's no problem with that. It isn't necessary, but if you have a floral tape cutter, you can use it. I'm using a half cut tape over here, and this is going to help me to reduce the bulk when I tape together the 6 stamens and the petals. Okay, so we're going to keep going till we've finished taping all the 6 stamens together. Make sure that the center is nice and tight because this is the base of the flower and you don't want it to be loose. Once done, just adjust the position of the stamen according to your liking. Once we are happy with the position of the stamen, we are just going to secure it tightly with the floral tape at the base one more time. Now we start taping the petals together. So I'm going to take my first inner petal and we will place the center right in the middle of that petal. We want to start taping from the base and we're going to secure the entire length of the wire. Unlike other flowers, the lily does not have intertwined petals. It actually forms like a triangular shape at the base. So what we'll do is we are going to place the second petal just perpendicular to the first while taping. Observe how we are supporting the flower between the thumb and finger while we tape the second petal. Now we're going to add the last inner petal to the flower. As you can see, the center sits extremely comfortably between the 3 petals. Make sure to end the petals in a V shape to easily attach the next row. Now for our next layer, I'm just going to slot each petal right in between the petals from the first row. We will position this row slightly below the first and keep the base tight so the petals naturally cup the layer above. From there, we just continue taping the petals exactly like we did earlier. If you are just starting out in sugarcraft, definitely use a shorter tape than mine. It's way easier to handle and it won't keep getting tangled up while you work. Now we go ahead and add the remaining 2 petals to finish the row. While I finish up with the assembly, let's quickly talk about styling. Because Stargazer lilies are so bold, vibrant, and naturally a large flower, they're going to work perfectly as standalone centerpieces. You can keep it exactly like this and they will look stunning. But in case you want a fuller composition, I suggest mixing it up with some simple filler flowers like baby's breath or mini roses, which are easy to make. And of course, every arrangement feels more complete with greenery. So for that, I highly suggest eucalyptus or lily leaves to bring movement and contrast to the design. Stay tuned till the end of the video because I've included a quick bonus tutorial at the very end to show you exactly how to make the lily foliage for your next project. Lastly, I'm just going to close up these gaps with some gum paste just for a little extra finishing. For that, I'm going to need a little bit of the lime green gum paste once again. Take out a small piece Gonna add a little bit of edible glue to the base. Wherever there are gaps, you're just gonna dab it a little bit, make it a little moist. And then we're gonna just basically take that little piece of gum paste and push it wherever there is a gap. Now we're just going to use our Dresden tool and merge the gum paste lightly into the petals. We're trying to work and smoothen that out. This step is completely optional. You can do this if you want to add a little extra finishing to the base of the flower. Once done, I'm just going to dab this with a little bit of shortening and smoothen it out one last time with my fingers. And with that, our beautiful flower is now all completed. Let's move on to the foliage. For the leaves, I have a half length 20 gauge green wire. I'm just going to apply a little bit of edible glue to it. We're now going to need a piece of dark green gum paste. And now we're going to roll the gum paste around the wire just like we did for the petals. I have a little bit of shortening on my hands as well, just to condition the gum paste. Now we're going to press it down with the rolling pin and leave it alone for a couple of minutes. Leaving the wired part relatively thick, I'm just going to roll out the gum paste towards the sides and pull that out. We are basically applying the same technique the way we did with our petals. Now using the template, I'm going to make a cutout. As you can see, the leaf is quite thick right now, so we're just going to thin that out using a ball tool. I'm just working on the edges, not towards the center too much. It's a bit easier to thin out the leaf with your ball tool rather than the rolling pin, so that's how I like to do it. The lily leaves are naturally a bit thick, so you don't want them too thin any which ways. Next, we are going to run the shell tool along the length to add some texture. Because the leaf is a bit thick, you are going to lose some of the shape when you texturize it, but don't worry about that. I like to go over it twice at least, because when you flip it and work on it, it does lose a little bit of the texture, so I like to reinforce the texture again. Using my template, I'm just going to give this a final cutout with the X-Acto knife. Let's just quickly get a better angle for this. One last touch up. Notice how I have frilled the edges just a little bit. Now we're just going to leave this alone till it starts holding its shape. For the last step, I'm just going to shape the leaf a bit by bending it to give it some movement, and then we're going to let it dry fully. And that's your foliage all completed. If you've learned something new today and found these techniques helpful, please give the video a like, share it around, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you soon.